Hello
Hello
there.
there.
Welcome back to Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Elon.
I'm Jacob.
This is episode 158 of Star Wars in a Galaxy, episode 2 of season 20 of Star Wars in a Galaxy, where we are back yet again doing some Andor. A week has passed for those of you who are listening to this since the last episode, but a day has passed for us. We're doing double recording of episodes 1 and 2 of Andor. So we just did Casa yesterday, as this would be last week, and now we're doing That Would Be Me, the second episode of Andor. And yeah, I'm really excited to get going with this. Jacob, have anything to say before we get going?
No, you wanna summarize it for us?
All right,
Uh,
in That Would Be Me, we start off in a flashback. Cassian and his Canary tribe are still trying to figure out this crashed starship on the world of Canary, what it's all about. Meanwhile, Tim Carlo visits Bix, and they have like a tense conversation about exactly what's going on, where he's trying to figure out what's going on with her and Cassian and all that kind of stuff. Cassian goes home to his mother, Marva, who frets about his safety even before he reveals to her that he was in this confrontation in the previous episode, which she had already figured out because the wanted notice from the Empire had already started coming out, describing him as a Canary male, where she was very confused about that because all of the documents they've ever provided to the Empire says Cassian has been born on the planet Fest. They then start running down who's they've told. Cassian goes and meets Bix and tells her about what's going on. They negotiate about when he's going to be able to sell an NS9 Starpath unit that he stole to her buyer. And through many conversations, it turns out the buyer is actually coming to Ferrix that day. Then, agitated by his argument with his girlfriend, Tim Carlo goes to a payphone and turns Cassian in to the Empire, which then Syril Karn and what's his name, Sergeant Linus Mosk, assemble a task force from the Galactic Empire to go and arrest Cassian on suspicion of the murder of these two Supreme War security guards. We go into another flashback where some members of the tribe on Canary are investigating the crashed starship. They find out that though most of the members of the crew are dead, one is alive, who quickly begins shooting at them with his blaster pistol, but they manage to kill him with their own weaponry. We then see the buyer, a rebel operative named Luthen Rail, flying down to Ferrix on his Fondor Hallcraft and arguing and having a discussion with a fellow passenger on a ship down to Ferrix. What am I gonna say? And then we end with Cassian trying to scrounge up the credits needed for a costly impromptu trip off-world, obviously realizing the Empire has caught on to his scent and needing to escape quickly.
Yeah, so very, very, very interesting episode. I think if last week felt like a slow burn, or I guess yesterday as we recorded it, but if last episode felt like a slow burn, this one really feels like kind of an in-betweener sort of episode where we're just kind of scaffolding a lot of the main parts of the story, and getting all the connective tissue in so to speak.
And we'll see this. I'd argue 3 more times in this series. The Axe Forgets, episode 5. Nobody's Listening, episode 9. And Daughter of Ferrix, episode 11. We'll see this general arc structure going on. So it's nice that we're getting used to it right off the bat.
Yeah, I think these 3, especially these 2, really, really just stretch out the exposition maybe a little bit longer than I would like. Even I know I said last episode that I like that it's a slow burn, but this one I started scratching my head and going, this is kind of not quite as exciting just yet as I remember from watching Andor the first time. But I mean, the flashback is amazing. I think it starts to make I was really thinking, I was kind of thinking hard about it, and it starts to make a little more sense. I mean, first off, what an opening! The absolute scale of the abandoned Imperial mineral mine that we see,
Yeah.
just I think as a literal sort of smacking you in
Well,
the
not
face
wait. The
represent.
Imperial mine?
Is it not an Imperial mine?
Are you talking about the shot with young Cassian?
Yeah. Is
That's
that
not the
pre?
Empire. The Empire doesn't exist.
Okay, let me wait.
Young Casa? No, that's not the Empire. Remember, the guy that the ship that crashed is a separatist ship.
Oh, okay, okay.
The guy was wearing
Hmm.
the one crew member who survived and then was killed by the tribe had a symbol for the Confederacy of Independent Systems on
Oh, I didn't
his
catch that. I didn't catch that. Good
shirt. Yeah,
catch.
I didn't
Well,
catch that on the first try.
yeah.
Some people pointed out on the internet later, but yeah, no, the that's it's actually that's yeah, no, this is way before the Empire was founded. Cassian
Just to,
Casa was
it looks like he was 9 during these flashbacks. Would have been around
yeah
23 BBY. So yeah,
yeah. So a
during the
year
first
before the
years, yeah.
events, a year actually. This is a question actually. I forgot. I knew there was some controversy around this. If it takes place in 23 BBY, do you see any problem with that?
That's before the actual start of the Confederacy of Independent Systems.
Well, it's not actually. I mean, like
Is it not?
we don't know actually.
Is it not 22 to 19?
Well, that's the Clone Wars. When the
Doesn't isn't the
Confederacy
con?
is founded, I don't actually like I don't we don't know the timeline, but you did come across the problem, which is
I mean,
if the ship was
don't
shot
we kind of
down.
see that in don't we kind of see that in Attack of the Clones though? Like the scene, the meeting on Geonosis where
Yeah,
Dooku's,
you could argue
talking
that's the
with all of
first
them, and they're
meeting.
like
Yeah.
I would argue that that is supposed to show us these
Either
different
way,
corporate groups are coming
yeah,
together. Either way, look,
yeah. Either way, you got the problem, which is if there's a battle between the Republic and the Empire happening in the Separatists happening in 23 BBY, that doesn't make a lot of
I
sense.
mean, look, maybe they got the year, I don't know, maybe whoever put that together got the year wrong. I just looked that up and found that on Google Answers. It's
Yeah, no.
not an
I'm
official
looking at
source, so
Wikipedia right now. I'm looking at Wikipedia right now. It says he was born in 33, and yeah, and he was 9 when the transpo Corsair, which actually would make it in 24 BBY,
I mean,
which
to be fair,
and
we
also
don't.
yeah.
To be fair, we don't know that it was a battle that necessarily downed that ship. I
Yes,
would
we do.
argue from what we
It
see.
was
Do
it
we?
was we see a ship shoot the other one down
Are you
in the first
serious?
episode. Yeah, we
Yeah.
they look up at the sky and a battle is happening in the sky.
Okay, let me hold on.
I'm almost certain. I'm pretty sure I didn't. What do you call that? I'm pretty sure I didn't Mandela
Imagine
effect
it.
this. I'm pretty
I
sure I didn't. I'm
All
almost
right,
certain
let's take a
there was
timeout.
a battle. Yeah.
I might have been looking away to write something down at that exact
Yeah.
moment. Going to try and find it. I'm watching the way. Okay, the way that I see it, I only see
Yeah.
there's clearly only one ship visible.
Okay.
I think
Okay.
the ship is
I
going
think I
down, and
might have imagined.
there's a ship go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to see why because it's behind the trees. There's a ship
It's
going
behind the
down. There's an
trees. Yeah.
explosion. I saw that as the explosion is on the ship.
Yeah.
But
It's incredibly unclear, and that's the other. Now I'm re-remembering the other canon conflicts because there's some source material that says that ship is a Republic ship, and yet they're wearing a separatist logo.
yeah,
So
I mean, yeah,
I
these are
think
kind
that's what
of
it was. I think that's what it was. I think this is what it was. I think this is how the canon people put this together. I remember now. This is a planet that had seceded from the Republic. This was from a planet that had seceded from the Republic, but like was still using, but like their ship was still like like it was recent enough that their ship was still like branded as a Republic ship. The Separatists hadn't like formed in full yet. I think that's the idea.
Yeah, okay.
I'm
We could go
I'm
with
pretty
that.
I'm pretty sure that's the idea. I remember there being a lot of confusion around that. But either way, yeah. No, what were you gonna say about the flashbacks? Sorry, I totally just
So to loop all the way back, I think
yeah.
the abandoned, not Imperial, the abandoned mineral mine, I think is staggering. I think as an
Yeah,
opener, just to sort of show whether it's Republic, whether it's Imperial, whether it's Separatist, to sort of show the disruptive and destructive power of massive, governments, corporations, of massive mass scale exploitation of the environment and of people, just to
yeah.
show that, visually representing that, especially for Cassian, because I think everything that's happening in the flashbacks is sort of meant to provide a little bit of a parallel to what's happening in Cassian's life at the present time, where just as he's kind of losing his home because of these outside forces originally, he's also very afraid of losing his home again on Ferrix, with him being a fusion. I think that's sort of, and already from being on Morlana 1, I think that's going to be a theme that we're going to see more going forwards in the
Yeah,
rewatch,
this
perhaps.
motif of invasion, this motif
Yeah,
of people who don't belong there taking things as theirs. We're
yeah.
gonna see
And
it. We're gonna
more specifically Cassian as a
yeah,
character, and him fighting against the fear of losing his home and losing his community, because
yeah.
that's what happens to him multiple times.
And of course community, I just by that community, I'm thinking of like communities who have lost their home to the Empire. We'll see that again the next arc with Aldani. They've
Yeah,
also lost they're basically allowed to do a certain amount of things that the Empire says they can do, but the Empire is mostly just using their planet, most of their planet territory that they would have been using anyway, as a weapon, as an weapons depot. And I think they're doing mining on Aldani as well. I might be misremembering that. But and same thing, same you could say same thing about Narkina 5. Dewey and Freedy, those hunters, they were chilling, they were living their lives, and then the Empire decided to build a penitentiary on Narkina 5.
yeah,
You can see this all over, and of course, beyond this series, Lafal is a fantastic example.
yeah,
Garel, Mapuzo from the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. We see this all the time in the Bad Batch. The Empire takes what it wants and doesn't really care about the rest. And
sure.
even though the flashbacks are pre-Empire, the Republic, although I suspect it cared a bit more than the Empire, not that like the Republic also had a habit
The
of
Republic has its own problems.
yeah,
The
the
Republic
Republic
has its own problems. Let's
yeah,
be. It's a hell of a lot better than the Empire, but
but
let's
yeah, they
be honest.
still
Let's be honest. We know. Yeah,
there's still a problem of galactic colonialism. And yeah, no, there's what I like actually. I think adding on about that shot of Casa standing beyond this wide expanse. I feel like it's kind of Cassian's or Casa's uh twin sons moment a little bit, where
mm,
instead of Luke wondering, oh, what's out there and all that kind of stuff, it's Cassian seeing, oh, there's a larger world out here beyond my tribe, beyond
yeah,
and like it's
yeah.
coming for me and those who I love, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to do something.
Yeah, I think if you look at, I mean, that's a really cool observation to draw the parallel there, because I think, like, if you look at that as visually, the parallel with the twin sons moment is, Luke is sort of looking out at the galaxy, with this, extreme sort of hope and optimism and spirit
Wonder,
of
yeah,
wonder and adventure, almost naive, pretty actually kind of naively at this point, almost naively, you could say. Cassian, on the other hand, all of his experiences, kind of lead him to, become the person he does. Where, not to say that he's a bad or evil person, but he very strongly knows that he feels that he has to do whatever it takes to survive.
Yeah, and
Whatever
look,
it
like
takes. And that's
Luke
like,
and Cassian grew up
that's
very different childhoods, and it's so funny that but we mentioned this now because I remember at like shortly after the Andor season 1 finished, I remember that one of the first interactions I feel like I remember at like a con between like post Andor between members of the Andor cast and members of other Star Wars stuff is a picture that Antonio Vina, who plays Casa, and Grant Feely, who plays Luke in Obi-Wan Kenobi, took together at a con. So like I'm just thinking about that because
hilarious.
I remember that picture coming out and being like, oh, that's really cool. But like, Luke, I mean, Luke's history with it is complicated because Luke is the descendant of people who were brought to Tatooine via slavery. So that doesn't count. But you have to remember, why are humans and Hutts and all those other species on Tatooine in the first place? Colonization. I mean, the native peoples of Tatooine are the Tuscans.
They got
Of
a they
course,
got a raw deal,
we'll see
and the
how things
Jawas too, but yeah,
and
the
the
Tuscans
Jawas,
got a real raw deal.
but yeah, we'll see how the things shook out for the Tuscans later on in the Book of Boba Fett. Spoiler,
Yeah,
not so well, but you
yeah.
know,
The allegory. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. The allegory, Tatooine is the most clear example. The allegory
yeah,
is literally, hey, let's have this. We're gonna have like a train. We're like a train hijacking, like, old west, cowboys and Indians style. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's very, very clear what they're, going for there. And I think the same can absolutely be said for, to a certain extent, I think, for Canary.
yeah. No, absolutely. Anything to say about this flashback, or should we go back to present day Ferrex?
I want to talk about our introduction to Marva and Cassian and Marva's the introduction of their relationship, because
Yeah,
this is one of my favorite. I think this and Syril Karn's, you know, demotivational speech are definitely my favorite parts of the episode. I think it's just, I mean, first of all, just the acting and the dialogue in this part, it's so raw, it's so tightly woven together, it's so good. The way that they're shouting over each other, you're just immediately
yeah,
thrust into, you feel like, years of, family tension, and Cassian,
yeah,
going out and getting himself into trouble, and all that good stuff. And
yeah.
I love how we're introduced to Marva here.
I do too, and I really like. I'm sure I'm not into a lot of British media myself, so I'm sure she's way better known there. What I knew Fiona Shaw before Andor from was as Petunia Dursley from the Harry Potter films.
I've
And
never watched the Harry Potter movies, but
Credit to Fiona Shaw, she is she plays Petunia Dursley as horribly as that character is in the books and in the films.
yeah, mark of a great actor.
But I really do like getting to see a performance by Fiona Shaw that is of a character that I can actually like a little bit more. And yeah, she's great as Marva. I there it's such a special and complicated. We'll see, especially with the next episode with Reckoning, with the ending of those flashbacks. That relationship is complicated,
Absolutely, it is. Yeah,
and especially because of how it started. But yeah, there's just a but yeah, it's all. It's obvious that she cares. It's obvious that she's just incredibly concerned for her adopted son's well-being. And yeah, I love. I've talked about this. We talked about this on our Cassian Andor episode of what was that, Character Appreciation Day.
yeah,
But the detail that the story group did in this, which I think is so cool and so smart, of having because Cassian before Andor was listed in all of the visual dictionaries as being born on the planet of Fest, and making that detail into an element of the
Yeah.
story, I think is maybe one of the most fun things that the Lucasfilm Story Group has ever done with canon, like ever.
Yeah, I like that
Um,
as well. They said,
it's just one of those little details that, like, oh no, we weren't wrong. We just didn't have the full story.
yeah,
I think that's really cool, and I remember being very impressed when I saw that for the first time. But
yeah.
even before that, I do want to
I feel
talk
like
about
that's a great way to that's a great way to retcon when you can
it's a
when you
beautiful
can
way to
do it while
retcon.
respecting, or rather than just ripping away what was already there. When you have
Yeah.
when there's the opportunity to gracefully accommodate that, I as a fan, that as a reference book enjoyer, as like,
Yeah.
we're real Star Wars nerds. We as someone who like loves to get into the nitty gritty details, that makes me very, very happy and pleased.
It's
It's a
very fun.
cool ass
And
detail.
I will say, I think it's probably Tony Gilroy's lack of reverence for the source material that probably allows the Lucasfilm Story Group to like go in and do stuff like that. Like, I'm sure, like, I'm sure, like, before the script that Tony Gilroy wrote was like, oh, we'd always said you were born on Y planet, but you were really born on Canary. But it was the story group, I'm almost certain, who went in and said, oh wait, we had this name of a planet already that we had. Why don't we just use that as the cover story? Which I think is very cool. Yeah. The I forgot when watching this episode. I will say I forgot that the title came from the line that Cassian says to Marva when she asked who told the Primor security guards that he was Canary, and he says that would be
Yeah,
me. And
yeah,
one of the things I appreciate about that is that I remember around the time that Andor was premiering, one of the early criticisms I heard from Alex Damon of Star Wars Explained was the fact that Cassian, at the beginning of the story, didn't seem like much of an active character. That a lot of things were happening to him rather than him causing things to happen. And very much later, like he was like analyzing, and I agree with this analysis that that's kind of the story. The story is how does Cassian like just stop having things happen to him and actually be part of what's happening in the galaxy. And I
yeah.
think that obviously the next episode is the first big moment
Oh
that
gosh,
he
I
will
can't wait for next episode. Yeah, absolutely.
what the next episode is the first big moment that he decides to be an active part of what's going on. But I think that this moment right here is actually the first time, even if it's a small way, like who told them that you were Canary? Cassian could have lied. We've seen so many lies by characters on all sides. This is a show that is very much about duplicity in a lot of these characters' arcs. There are a lot of characters who are keeping secrets from each other. And Cassian could have lied, but Cassian's like, no, I will, like, I am going to stand up for myself. I am going to, like, I'm not going to just try and pretend this whole thing didn't happen. I'm going to, wherever possible, stand up for myself against the Empire.
Yeah,
And I did this in self-defense, and I did this because they were racially profiling me. And they can try and take me out. They can try and take me away. They can try and kill me if they want, but they're not going to be getting me without a fight. Say, as much as I still can't stand Tim, I really love the acting of, like, you could see the gears in turning in his head from James McArdle's acting, which I love, where you can see he hears about the Canary mail that's wanted. The gears are starting to turn in his mind of, oh, I could do this. He's been talking to Bix too much.
yeah.
I
There
don't
is
I
no
don't like
shortage of
that.
good acting. There is no
Yeah.
shortage of good acting in this show. I
Yeah,
will
and
definitely say.
what I think is, and obviously we'll get to this next episode, which I feel like I'm I'm gonna say a lot during Andor just because the episodes like the arcs are so interconnected. They're I often forget where one starts and one ends. But we'll see this with the Empire, where you know Tim does this thing reports Cassian out of spite and jealousy mostly.
Yeah.
What does it get him? Gets him a blaster shot in the back. Ends his life. Tim may think he is doing a public good, but the only person who benefits from what Tim is doing is the Empire. Or the only people who benefit from what Tim's doing is the Empire. And the Empire relies on this mistrust of this, like they keep the lower classes, they keep the people fighting against each other, so they don't realize that their true enemy is the Empire. As long as people can be fighting for power among the system, which we will, by the way, see in the Imperial bureaucracy itself when we get to stuff with Dedra Meero and her jockeying for power later in this season. In addition to next season, where we know that Dedra Meero is going to be jockeying for power within the Imperial Security Bureau with a certain director of advanced weapons research who is returning for another appearance in Star Wars. Mendelsohn is back. This is not a like I said last episode about something else. Not a bug in the Empire's design. It's a feature. This is a feature of the Empire's design to keep that infighting. Keep the like we see all the time. With the Thrawn and the Tarkin and the Krennic and all that kind of stuff. Even with Sidious, Sidious loves to do this. Sidious,
I feel like he does it because he's bored at a certain point, to be honest.
Yeah, but like Sidious especially,
and he wants everyone to fight each other.
Sidious, who Sidious does it a lot with? Like he's obviously done it with Maul and he's done it with Dooku. He loves to do it with Vader.
He constantly pits his underlings against each other. I think, that's like the Sith. That's totally the Sith ideal. That's like the Sith approach and the Imperial approach by extension is this idea of sharpening the blade.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that really, that goes all the way down. Look out for number one type of vibe,
Yeah, absolutely. I also just want to make this note. I don't know why I find this funny. I do find it very funny that Tim makes the call from what is essentially a payphone.
Yeah, I also just the fact that like this is such a kind of the Empire has created such a like dystopian sort of like East German 1984 kind of society where they literally just have what seem to be maybe payphones just for informing, although they totally also could be for other things. I'm now realizing he like did type in a long code. But
I'm almost certain they're for other things, but like it's
I do love the fact that he just goes to a payphone to do it. Like that, I love the way that this show does the Star Wars technology. It feels so retro futuristic in a way that I really, really dig. Like it's very much in the vein of like the original trilogy aesthetic. You have certain shows that are much more, kind of the prequel trilogy, type of portrayal of the technology and the aesthetics of the machinery and the electronics, which I also adore. I also adore that, by the way. Don't get me wrong. But the original trilogies, like the way that everything is art directed, when it comes to the buttons, the screens, everything, it's just chef's kiss in this show.
Yeah,
absolute chef's kiss. On that note, I want to talk about interior design. I know, super exciting. What's Star Wars without interior design? The design of the houses, the interiors, the living spaces in this show just jump out at me for some reason. Maybe this is just me. Maybe you feel this way. I don't know, but I feel like the way that they feel so believable and lived in, yet also clearly, otherworldly. It's the other worlds. It's the other world's idea of and practice of what like a rote, everyday routine is. But I think the fact that that's so believable that's essential to what the show is trying to do, and it's also just an example of what the show is trying to do of making the world feel so believable, vibrant, alive. Every single last corner, every single shot for the story that this is telling, where it's like this is normal, regular, everyday people living their trying to live their normal, everyday, regular lives until they can't or until they're forced not to.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just had to gush about the interior design because I feel like it
you're
just
hitting on a
represents that.
point.
So yeah,
You're hitting on a point that's been much discussed recently with Star Wars' focus that I think is ending pretty soon, actually, on live action television, because you have this clear split in the Star Wars television pantheon. You could say the Star Wars live action television pantheon.
yeah,
Where we have these two types of shows, where we
yeah,
have the Mandalorian, the Grogu saga, the Mandalorian, the Book of
yeah,
Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which rely incredibly heavily on the volume. Not to say that the Acolyte and Andor don't. In fact, we know for a fact that there are some sets. I think there a lot of the stuff in Mon Mothma's house, in Mon Mothma's apartment, is the volume. But the vast majority of Andor is on practical sets, is shot on location on sets. The same thing with the Acolyte. Now, now there is an argument, and I agree with, like, I see where this coming from. Obviously, the volume technology, the stagecraft technology, is still in its infancy, and I would argue that even so, especially in Ahsoka, in Skeleton Crew as well. I forgot about Skeleton Crew, probably because it's still coming out. When this episode comes out, we've only seen the first two, but when this episode was recorded, we've only seen the first two, but when it comes out, we will have seen up to 4, I believe. So I hope I enjoy that Daniels episode. I think I'm going to enjoy that Daniels episode. But the the sets of the sets of Andor and Ahsoka, and the Acolyte. I mean, I will say I do have that feeling of more aliveness than the volume does in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka and Skeleton Crew. And I like the volume more than most people like the volume. However, then we have the drawback, which is that the making practical sets and doing all those practical sets and stuff like that they did for Andor and the Acolyte costs a lot of money.
yeah.
And it
I mean, the
turns
volume
out,
is ultimately a cost-saving
yeah, and it
innovation. Like
turns
that's
out,
part of it.
unfortunately, that Andor and Acolyte also happen to be the 2 least watched Star Wars shows of Disney's live action slate.
That's so unfortunate too. That's so unfortunate because it's some of the
Yes,
best. They really are.
Andor was second to bottom. Acolyte unfortunately did pretty badly, we know, with Disney Plus streaming, just in terms of views. And there are a bunch of reasons about that. And I think the Phantom Menace backlash, unfortunately, was a big driver, unfortunately, of people's disinterest in the show, which I think is stupid and racist and unforgivable in all those specific ways. But so, and whereas I will say this, as we know, on film, very few films have been made with the volume. And although the volume is being used in more and more films, in fact, the first Star Wars film we're getting back, The Mandalorian and Grogu, I'm pretty sure was shot almost entirely on the volume.
Yeah, there's no way there's no way that the Grogu verse movie is not going to use the volume.
The Mandalorian Grogu is using the volume, but I'm almost certain that James Mangold's Dawn of the Jedi film, that he's writing with Andor writer Beau Willimon, by the way, and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy's New Jedi Order film, I'm almost certain those will not use the volume. So it is not so. So this is a specific question about their TV shows on Disney Plus that I've heard. I just heard a lot of conversation about it, and I wanted to just. I just think it's interesting, and obviously there's a lot of questions right now, especially even with films and TV shows in Star Wars and in Marvel and all these big franchises about cost. When you have Marvel films or Star Wars films or DC films or whatever that are filming with a budget of $200 million, $250 million, $300 million. And, you know, the box office and streaming services have never been the same since COVID.
Yeah.
You just and the box office hasn't been the same since COVID, and I would highly encourage listening to Force Center. Joseph Scrimshaw, who is a writer I'm pretty sure he still writes for Adult Swim. I forget if he used to. I don't know if he does now. Anyway,
In the industry,
he has had
suffice it to
in
say.
the industry. In the industry, Joseph Scrimshaw has talked about the problem with streaming services, which is obviously the fact that at a certain point with streaming services, you hit a cap.
Also,
Like there are not going to be more people to subscribe to streaming services because you reach all the people that want to. It's not like a movie where you can every time you want to rewatch it, at least until it's on a streaming service,
yeah.
you have to pay another time.
I watched Dune 2 5 times. I'm signing Timothée Chalamet's paychecks personally, in person, I swear.
Yeah.
But yeah,
no,
that's an example. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, but so like movies can't afford to have those $200 million budgets anymore. We saw this with the Marvels. We saw this with a lot of films in 2023. The Marvels was hurt by the strike too, but Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Indiana Jones 5 was hit by this. And so like I know there are a lot of conversations, and there's still going to be a lot of conversations, with the exception of The Mandalorian and Grogu, because again, shot on the volume, huge cost saving measure. There's going to be a lot of conversations, I'm sure, and these are being had within large studios like Lucasfilm and Marvel and all those other studios about like, okay, well, we do want to make these big budget things, but we have to be a bit more restrained because people aren't going to the movies as much as they used to be, and our budgets keep getting bigger and bigger, and like that can't last forever.
Yeah, at a certain point. Yeah, I mean, at a certain point, I think, I don't know. I would like to see the mid-budget movie kind of make a comeback. Like we've gotten to the point where,
me too.
Like so many other, it's kind of eerie almost how it seems like in so many this sort of monetary, numerical inequality and polarization seems to simultaneously be happening in so many industries and fields and aspects of life where there's no middle ground anymore. You've just got your massive blockbusters, and you've got your art house type of movies, and you don't really there's a dramatic shift towards those two extremes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And hopefully that will kind of, I think there's arguments for why that's harmful. But what I will say in terms of the viewership numbers is I wouldn't worry too much about certain shows not being watched by as many people, because I do think that I still think that you can make the argument, and I'm not sure, obviously, the Disney C-suite, I don't know how the suits in Disney Lucasfilm would feel about this. But you could argue that even shows, not every show is going to, smash the record of the last one. I think there's a place for shows that are a little bit more niche.
I 100% agree with you.
Fans, because I mean, this is a well-worn argument, but you can always make the argument of like the number of sets of eyes. Not every set of eyes that's watching it on the Disney Plus subscription is gonna be investing, spending the same amount of money in other ways on your products and your company. Merchandise.
You're right about this, and from what I can tell you, from what I understand, just from hearing people with way more knowledge of the industry than me talk about this, Andor is lucky that Tony Gilroy pitched this as a 2-season show, and that like the second season was already greenlit before the first one had come out. Because
Interesting.
like and that Andor was so critically well received. That's the other one. Andor was
Yeah,
that was so incredibly critically well received because we're getting that second season for Andor.
yeah,
Obviously, we're recording this a few months after it was not announced but leaked that Disney is not going to be doing anything else with the Acolyte anytime soon.
yeah.
And that was and I'm almost certain that was a direct response to viewership numbers, which were
Most
lower than
likely, yeah.
which were lower than Andor, but not I don't but from what I understand, not that much lower. So
Mm,
yeah, it's a whole mess, but I did want to just address the whole physical sets versus the volume and all that kind of stuff because
yeah,
I think it is interesting just from not even
yeah,
from monetary, but like just from a
yeah.
production standpoint.
So clearly Disney doesn't share my clearly Disney
No,
doesn't
unfortunately
share my
not.
view, unfortunately. That does make
Un-
me sad, but
yeah,
I'm very
yeah,
glad that I I think that the memory of the fan history will be kind to Andor, in my opinion, and
Ye-
possibly and probably to the Acolyte as well. I
history
think
will be very very kind to the Acolyte.
I
I
think that
think.
there's
I
sort of
hope.
this the I think part of the viewership thing is like there's this sort of not fully fandom menace, but there's this definite sort of dude bro or mindset that I kind of associate and I see associated with some of the more, kind of, dude bro-y elements of the fandom, for lack of a better word to say dude bro,
Yeah,
where it's sort of everything has to be like the greatest hits album, type of like type of show or movie, and there's no room for experimentation and taking risks
yeah,
in many ways, especially when it comes to Star Wars. I think that is a very, very myopic view when it comes to how did Star Wars even come into being and how did Star Wars get, even with the prequel trilogy and the expanded universe, how did we get to the stuff that is even universally loved among the people you know who are not happy with a lot of the Disney era, content.
yeah.
I'm
No,
not in the business of, policing and, litigating what other
yeah,
people do and don't watch, what TV shows other people do and don't enjoy watching. But I will say, like, I'm not, I don't think that that's a, yeah.
yeah. No, I
Don't
agree
love
with
the
you.
arguments of like, oh, the viewership was low. It's garbage. We have to dump it, Obviously
Yeah,
Disney's
no,
going to do what they do because
yeah, no,
they,
but
shareholder value, blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
But,
No, Disney
I don't
I
love that mindset.
100% believe that the Acolyte's cancellation was a monetary decision by Disney. Now, do I think that
Yeah,
the
it definitely was.
monetary decision was formed by the fact that many dude broy Star Wars fans didn't watch the Acolyte and
Yeah.
just waited for certain YouTubers to talk about how bad it was? Yeah, I do, but like the direct decision I think was just a monetary decision
Yeah.
because the Acolyte
Yeah.
cost around
Yeah.
$180 million to shoot, and
It's like
yeah,
it's like a really expensive movie. Oh my
yeah,
gosh. I also said that I don't think we can just blame, to be fair, we shouldn't just blame, you know, the uh, can I name names? The Star Wars theory, grift victim type of fans,
yeah,
because I think a lot of people also just didn't watch it because it, had a lower profile and wasn't as clearly connected into,
yeah,
like I think a lot of casual fans like are gonna be giving more of these shows and movies a miss going forwards now that there's so many of them. I think that's something that we have to be used to.
that's
And
true. Although
it's not necessarily a sign of
I
overt
wouldn't say
hostility
I
for the
wouldn't say
majority of
low
the
profile.
community.
I wouldn't say low profile. They marketed the shit out of the show. Um, Specifically the Acolyte. I know they spent and with
They
Andor too. Actually,
they
they
definitely did.
marketed the shit out of Andor as well.
It just
Um,
didn't have the same, and or to an extent, but Acolyte, it just didn't have the same buzz or level of cultural awareness at all that, Mandalorian and
yeah,
Book of Boba Fett had,
yeah,
back when they
and
were
and I
coming
think
out, first
there's
couple
also
seasons
some
of
of
that.
that because they were coming out during COVID. when people
Yeah,
didn't have a
there's, I
lot to
mean,
do anyway.
and the
So
Disney Plus was newer. The shows were newer. I mean, look, there's all kinds of
yeah,
confounding
there's
variables.
all kind of factors. Yeah,
We don't really know.
we don't
We've
really.
taken a very wide detour. It's been a
Yeah, no,
very beautiful
yeah,
conversation. What else
yeah.
do you want to talk about in regards to That Would Be Me?
I only have two more things.
Okay.
Uh, one of which we'll talk about. One of which is pretty small, and one of which I think we'll talk. The other of which I think we'll talk about way more next episode on In Galaxy. The first thing I want to talk about, and I'm gonna try and look up what model of this ship is. I'm sorry, you cannot convince me, and I feel like Andor is going to be like the world turned upside down for a bunch of stuff with you and me, Jacob, because I cannot believe I am the one talking about the design of a ship. But
Nice.
like, I like just give me a second. Yeah, the Preox Morlana personal carrier. This thing, the BTY 180 carrier.
Okay.
And this is not a diss, Tony Gilroy or anybody in this series. I want to make this clear. This is just like I remember seeing this going through hyperspace and just thinking about this. I put the link to it in to the Wikipedia page in the private chat, so you know which ship I'm talking about. It's the ship that Syril and the crew and the Imperial crew go on en route to arrest Cassian.
Okay. Looks pretty Imperial.
Okay, for me, this ship looks fucking ridiculous.
You're not a fan?
It's not that I'm not I just remember being I guess because most ships like have a very like I'm trying to figure out how to say this, like have a very like slanted sort of design, but like
Yeah.
it basically just being a gigantic triangular prism and just like some cannons down below. Like it I just remember when I watched this the other day for In a Galaxy, just like when they cut to the shot of that going through hyperspace, I'm just like, whoa, that's a weird ship.
It is definitely a weird one. But it reminds me a little bit of the Star Wars Rebels, the giant triangular, cargo ships in a way. Don't you think a little bit? I don't know. I don't think it was
I'm
that odd. I also think it
I don't
makes
know. It
sense.
jumped out at me
Maybe this
for
is a
some
big
reason.
stretch, but I think it makes sense thematically that they have a ship where all the weaponry, everything is focused on below. All that
Yeah,
the Empire is doing is sort of crushing those beneath it, and there's at this point like barely even
they're
a
punching down.
conception. There's barely even a conception that like people would revolt against them.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
I
don't know.
think
That's a
I think
stretch,
that's an
but like
interesting point. Yeah.
I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's a creative design.
Yeah.
I like it. I don't mind.
Again, I don't hate it or anything. There was just like a very much of a like there was a like kind of a visceral like a oh that looks weird
You're like,
even
oh,
for Star
that
Wars.
doesn't look right. That doesn't look like it should be able to fly.
And just for Star Wars and how ships are usually designed, I don't know what it was. But anyway, although he does not interact with a single other named character, although I shouldn't say that because that guy on the fucking bus probably has a name. This is Star Wars after all.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Stellan Skarsgård and Luthen
Mm,
Rail.
Luthen Rail, my goat.
Easily my
But
favorite new
such a
character
fun
introduced in
character.
this show.
Such a good
Um,
character. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I love Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen Rail. I think I it's funny because I around the time that Andor was getting out and shortly after, mostly after, I was getting into other franchises that had Stellan Skarsgård playing roles. So I'm thinking, and by the way, that guy's range impeccable because
Oof.
he's Luthen Rail in the Star Wars universe. He is Dr. Eric Selvig, astrophysicist in the MCU in Thor, the Avengers, and Thor: The Dark World, and Thor: Love and Thunder. I'm pretty sure, and of course he is Bootstrap Bill Turner, which I think is my favorite of his roles in the Pirates of the Caribbean films. Um, but yeah, no, basically his roles in those three franchises, as well as of course the other films he's been in. But the roles in those three franchises are award-winning astrophysicist,
Yeah.
basically Che Guevara, and one of the old guard of pirates.
Yeah, the dude can
Um,
act. The dude can
the
act.
guy has range. The guy has freaking range, and it's impressive. But yeah, no, I love Skarsgård and Rail acting as what I feel is the Obi-Wan role in this season, very much to Cassian's Luke or Anakin or whatever you want to say.
Mm.
And I'm very much looking forward to revisiting as well as continuing on when Andor season 2 comes out next year with this relationship of Luthen showing Cassian the tricks of the trade of how to be a rebel and how to be a revolutionary. And also because we know that we know this, and we know that Luthen knows this, because we will hear Luthen profess to, yeah, I've made some mistakes.
Yeah.
I've done some things that I regret. Of, can Luthen not only teach Cassian how to be a good rebel and good revolutionary, but a better one than he was? And so obviously we he just steps down on Ferrex at the very end of this episode, and we'll see what happens when he meets with Cassian next episode. But I didn't want to mention Luthen Rail because I love that character. Other than the fact that I'm so glad that Syril Karn found an Imperial officer just as pathetic as he is in Linus Mosk, I don't really have anything else for this episode. Do you have anything else?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I one moment. Let's just talk about the supremely awkward motivational speech. It's absolutely hilarious. It's amazing. I think it just shows Cyril Karn's his sort of delusions of grandeur no bounds, or he's
I need to give me a
he's
second. I'm going
clearly
to pull
just
up the
like
script for this
saying like
episode.
the cliche things. He's like, there's no team I'd rather be with. This team was clearly like just put together. They chose some dudes. Like all the other guys are
It's
looking around
so
at each other like, is
it's
this guy
so
for real?
pathetic.
What's happening?
It is so like it is
Yeah.
just so stupid. I love how I admire the stupidity of it. I
Yeah.
really do.
But he's just looking for, it's a great way of showing how like, yeah, he's just looking for meaning, he's just looking for meaning, and he gets turned into an agent of the empire, an agent of fascism,
Yeah,
he
yeah,
just
and
wants to
how
feel like he has a meaningful life, and he is,
yeah.
bro, he is the Gen Z lost boy of Star Wars. I feel
Look,
like
sh-
he is
yeah,
absolutely the Gen Z lost boy of Star Wars.
should I say it? Should I say it? Should I say he's an incel?
I wouldn't go that. I don't think that's exactly what he represents or what he is analog to, but in a
But you see where
general
I'm going
sense,
with that.
he's disaffected. He is kind of he's clearly a little bit rudderless and just like desperate not to live a meaningless, unsuccessful life.
Like
And
I
because
don't
of
think
that,
it. I
he's
will
just
say this.
latching on to the first thing that he feels like is going to bring him success and power and status.
I don't think it should be. I don't think it is a coincidence that he looks suspiciously like Charlie Kirk. I'll just say that. I
Charlie,
don't think.
you think he
I
looks like
don't
Charlie Kirk? Wait, hold on.
look him up.
Okay, wait. We gotta. Gosh, his haircuts are so much worse than I remember. Just on Google, like every single image of him on Google Images, some like absolutely atrocious cut, dude. I have beef with Charlie Kirk's barber. Oh my god. Oh my god. Anyways, Syril Karn. Let's.
Or like
I
he's
don't.
for me.
I don't. I don't see
Cyril
it. I
Karn
don't
is
see it.
Cyril Karn is a cross between Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro.
I don't think he looks like
Uh,
either of them. But if that's where you want to take it, I
I guess
guess I
maybe just
can.
personality wise, but like anyway. But either way, like one of those young right wing fascist, sympathizers.
Yeah, he's in love with
And
the idea of law and order.
yeah, and
Completely
what
failing to see
he
that he's like ruining lives in the process.
yeah, and that yeah, Serial Karn is endlessly fascinating to me. And I'm so excited. I'm actually very interested to see what they do with him in season 2, because his arc could go in so many different ways. What I want is it for to end as pathetically as it began, and I think that's the route they're going to go down. But you know, I think that with season 2, he very much has the potential to be on top of the world, but at a certain point, but I think the catch is he's going to be on top of the world until he isn't. He's going to be on top of the world,
Yeah,
and
I
then
mean,
something goes wrong for him, and then he's going to be not just back at the bottom, not just at the bottom of the food chain, but like maybe even lower than he was to start with this whole thing.
yeah,
I think he is going to be a less tragic kind of Sisyphean character where he's never going to really be able to accomplish
yeah.
what he wants to. But anyway, yeah, got anything else, or should I wrap this up?
No, fun episode. Bit of a head scratcher at times, but overall,
Yeah,
you could say
not
not a
not
lot really happens, but it's still very, very well put together. I almost enjoy how quiet this episode is because it really lets us kind of explore
yeah.
very
Or
subjectively these in
the
between spaces of life, sort of. So I'm
the
still a fan of this episode. I absolutely am.
we're building up, and it's all the tension's all gonna release in the next episode. That's gonna be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. Next week, episode 3, Reckoning.
Mm.
Me, Jacob, and special guest, first time guest on this show, our friend of the show, Goose, host of Triad
Yeah,
of the Force. I'm so excited to have Goose on. Goose is one of those people like when I had Scotty and Jerry on for the first time like a month ago, or like a few months ago now, but like where it's like how has this never happened? How have I
yeah,
never gotten these people? And Goose is absolutely one of those people. So I'm excited to have Goose on for next episode. In the meantime, you can follow us. You can listen to us on all platforms. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us not on Twitter. You can follow us on our social media platforms at In a Galaxy Pod. We've completely gone away from Twitter, as I mentioned last episode. So Blue Sky is the best place to find us. Hope y'all are enjoying Epic Confrontations. I don't know if the Coaxium run is going to be filmed by the time this episode is released. That's a hard maybe, but we're getting that ready, and I'm so excited to release that as well. Hope y'all are enjoying the Skeleton Crew after shows. I have a lot of fun doing those. I've only done one of them as of the recording of this episode, but I'm planning on doing them for not all of the episodes because Disney Plus had the wisdom of deciding to release one episode of Skeleton Crew on Christmas Eve and one episode of Skeleton Crew on New Year's Eve. So I'm still figuring out whether I'm going to stream on either of those days. Definitely not on both of them. Maybe on Christmas Eve, but I don't think so. Either way, you can check all that out on the Star Wars in a Galaxy YouTube channel. You can check all of my stuff out. My link tree, linktr.ee/_3 _ OGFan327 is where you can find all of my stuff. And I think if there's nothing else, may the Force be with you.
always.
Always.